or to the cloud. Good.
Thank you. All right, welcome everyone. My name is Tom Davies. I'm Director of Athlete and Coach Development at Special Olympics Canada. And thank you for joining us on the first webinar of the week to celebrate Volunteer Week. We want to start by letting you know this session will be recorded and we're going to share it out later. At Special Olympics, we respect, acknowledge, and thank the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit of Canada, on whose traditional territory we play, learn, live, and meet today. So these webinars have been set up to complement the great things being offered at chapter and local level during Volunteer Week. The hope is really to provide some professional development for when we can get back onto the playing field. It's obviously been a pretty tough year, but the ability for our organization to pivot and still provide programming for our athletes shows the strength of our volunteers, so thank you. Do want to highlight that tomorrow evening we have another session led by Natasha Wesch, the 2022 Team Canada Mental Performance Lead, and her session will be focused on being the best I can be, preparing myself as an SO volunteer. So she'll be offering it in French at 7 o'clock and English at 8 o'clock. And we are going to jump right into it. I'm going to introduce Glenn Kandari, founder of Coach Plus, a coach developer, someone who's traveled the world working with coaches and volunteers, but most importantly, and I'm sure his most proud title, a local and past national team Special Olympics coach. Over to you, Glenn. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Tom. And welcome, everyone. I am just going to get my screen share organized here. And like so. Yes, we're good. Yeah, thanks, everyone. So as you would have seen in the correspondence yesterday from Special Olympics Canada, we're going to talk a little bit about sort of simple and effective feedback here today. And one of the things, so first of all, congratulations for coming on this call. I'm always impressed when, especially on short notice, when people continually strive to improve and find some development, even if it's in small amounts. And that's, we may talk about that today. It's a big concept that I work in every day. That's this idea of nudging forward. There's no real day you wake up and all of a sudden things are significantly better in your coaching. They always just nudge ahead a little bit. So in that vein or that theme, everything is going to be simple and hopefully effective today. Not a lot of words on the screen, not a lot of pictures. So it's going to be, should be clean and straightforward. So first of all, I do want to say thank you. It is Volunteer Week, and so many of you, contribute more than your fair share amount of time. And I know those who are part of the national team program, especially in the Winter Games, are getting ready for Russia. And so whether you're a local coach, a national team coach, whether you're staff on the call or whatever, so just a big thank you. And what I'd like to do is we're going to use the chat a fair amount today. So I am going to ask you as a little quiz to get going. Who is this a picture of? This is a coach. Who is it? Type your answer in the chat. If you don't know, it's okay to say, I don't know. No idea. I don't know who Mike Frogley is, Ken. No idea. Women's soccer coach. Allison with a question mark after his name. So Kathy, former women's soccer coach from Team Canada, now the men's soccer coach. And Allison, you are correct with a question mark. You can take that off. It's that is John Herdman, but it was a nice picture of him saying sort of thank you to some fans. So I would pass that on to you as well. So well done. The national men's wheelchair coach. No, that's national men's soccer coach, Ken. John Herdman. All right. So from there, I would like for you as well in the chat, I would like for you to finish off this sentence. Okay. The challenge here with this sentence is I would like you to do it in the fewest number of words and the simplest words that you can. Feedback is what? So you're actually in this moment, this is very meta. We're going to ask you to give feedback about feedback. So finish that sentence off in the least words and the simplest words. critical to success. Important. Motivational. Hopefully, Duncan, yeah. So what is feedback to you? We're going to go 10 more seconds and see if we can get some more feedback on that. Information about performance. Fair enough, especially in the coaching. Sue's already got coaching in her mind. That's good. I love it. In response to question or performances, yeah. Advice to athletes, great. Okay, so we have quite a varied number of answers here. So if we think about this, the question that becomes is like, why do we offer feedback? Like, why do you want to learn about feedback? What are the benefits to feedback? So Tom, can I, or can you give, I guess I could ask this where people can actually turn their mics on. Can we do that? I don't know that I can do that easily. So yeah, I think I can probably, I can allow everyone to talk, can't I? Oh, cool. I don't know how to do this all in one time, everyone, so bear with me. We have a small group, so that's okay. So what I'd like to know is everyone is going to have the ability to talk. And I would like to hear, even though we can't see each other necessarily, we can definitely have some interaction. If we were a much bigger group, then we wouldn't necessarily do this, but we weren't really sure how many would come on, so we took a chance and we'll do it this way. Okay, so I think everyone should be able to talk. So I would like to know from you, why offer feedback to someone, right? Because we know that as a coach, it's kind of like the only weapon you really have. Like if you're not giving feedback, like what's the point of it all, right? So why? Help me out here, folks.
It could positively support some part of what the athlete is doing.
Okay. Even like a quick example, Sue, something like that you're thinking?
Well, in skiing, for example, maybe it's an edge, so you can see how they've tried that. So you could say, I really like the way that your edge cut into the snow. Look at it on the snow.
Right. Okay. So in this case, it's about improving performance, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, good.
But it's also self-confidence as well.
Ah, nice. So then we get into, some of the benefits of feedback. So we can see improved performance, we can see increased confidence. And usually with more confidence comes what? When I feel more confident, what am I going to do?
Better performance.
Yeah, probably better for performance. I think that was Ron. Yeah. Right. I may be inclined to take a few new risks, right, and try some new things if I'm feeling confident. So my motivation might be a little bit higher, right? And we see that sometimes, whether you're on the hill, on the court, in the pool, wherever your sport is you have that good back and forth with the athlete. You're giving feedback, and they're trying things, and then they start asking, "Can I try this now?" Right. So this is these essential building blocks of feedback, right? And the more we can appreciate that feedback is not just simply somebody standing in front of you and you telling them what to do better, or in a sense what they're doing wrong. It's much more inclusive than that, and it's definitely has a lot more significant input to it. Okay, so what we're going to do today, because I'm a huge fan of clean, and you can see the slides are simple and clean intentionally, we're really going to focus on one very practical tool when you leave here today. So this is going to be, I didn't even explain this in the beginning. We're going to be half hour, 40 minutes. I like to be very practical in the coach development that we do. Set a little foundation here, but we're going to give you a tool, and then we're going to see about you practicing that tool when you leave here today. All right. So I'd like to know this. Is feedback coach or athlete? Is it coach or athlete focused? What do you think about that?
I think it should be athlete focused.
Okay.
I think you should be both. You share your thoughts and express them.
Okay. Fair. Super fair.
I think it can be both as well. The performance for the athlete and making them feel better about themselves. And also I think for the coach, that the coach can see they're on the right track and they're identifying something that is advantage to the athlete.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Spot on. So in order to do that, one of the skills you absolutely must be good at is let's just turn the tables a little bit. In order to give good feedback, what do you have to be able to do well?
Communicate.
Okay. And so, one key part of communication, right? If I'm coaching and I'm giving feedback, what do I have to be able to do with that athlete to be able to give quality feedback?
Observe them.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to watch. Yep.
I think build a relationship with the athlete.
Wonderful. Right. So this idea of listening and relationship building, right? So it's a little less mechanical in that sense, but I want you to think about almost all the instances when you've given or offered feedback to someone. How much time do you spend thinking about, okay, am I saying the right thing? Am I saying it the right way? Am I describing it? Is the technical words, like, whatever your sport is, if I'm using technique, am I kind of getting that right? And you spend, would you say, a fair amount of time thinking about what you're going to say or what you're going to do? Yes? No?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So have we ever really considered in a meaningful way what that feedback sounds like or the impact that it has on the person who's receiving feedback? So that most of the literature you read, the books you read are all about giving good feedback, and there's not a lot on receiving feedback. And I think to the point, the more relationships are built, the easier it is to start to understand the impact of that feedback. And there was a really great example of how feedback can be totally misconstrued. So my wife is very involved in Special Olympics as well. And she was speaking with some athletes on the phone or on a Zoom call yesterday. And one of them had just come back from the dentist and had her papers. She had some teeth removed. And she told Michelle that she couldn't find her papers. So Michelle said, have you looked here? Have you looked there? No, or yes, I can't find them. And Michelle said, well, I guess someone must have broken in and taken them. And what do you think Mandy said? What? Somebody broke into my house? Right? So this idea of feedback and what it sounds like to the person receiving it, especially, and here we're talking about generic feedback, but especially in our context of Special Olympics athletes, when many of them are trying to, better understand visual cues and all those kinds of things, you can appreciate that the feedback, from our point of view, we probably could or should spend more energy and time on the receiving end of it and not necessarily on the delivering side of it. Okay. So in order to give feedback though, okay, so what we're going to do is go like this. So in order to give feedback, let's just say we need a home base, right? So if we're going to give someone some feedback, it has to be based on like an objective or a goal, right? Because very often we're giving feedback, and we'll talk about a few different types of feedback here in a minute. The whether it's prescriptive or we're describing or giving some evaluation like good job or hey, that was like 7 out of 10. It has to be, it's all based on something. And so what we're going to do is take you through so this is the tool that I mentioned. This is the TED Pie tool. So if I was on stage, I'd say, get out your pen and write this down because this is the important part. So what we're going to do here is walk through a very simple little model of gaining insight from your athletes, because the feedback that we give can't just be based on what you're seeing. Because if someone is, as Sue said, making, edging a certain way on the snow, often we have to understand their intent. Maybe their technique's not bad. Maybe they just don't understand how to do it. But we need to dive in a little bit and learn more. And so what I'm going to challenge you with here today is to think a lot less about asking questions. Questioning is great. My challenge with questioning is that it takes a lifelong, explicit effort to become a very good questioner. And very often we'll say things like, how did that feel? What do you think of that? How did it go? And I think you can all agree that the feedback you get is often lacks in specificity, right? So it's very generic type stuff. So you ready for the big reveal here? So what we have is TED Pie. So what we're going to do is ask people to tell us maybe something, right? We're going to have them maybe explain, maybe describe. We're going to think about things precisely and in detail and exactly. Now, you can use other words here, but for the sake of the acronym, can you imagine if you said to your athlete, can you describe in detail the, what you saw when that player in volleyball came up for the block, right? Or explain precisely how you prepared for today's competition. So this idea of taking anything on the left and matching it with anything on the right, you can see now really starts to encourage a conversation back and forth where you get very rich information back, and you then can start to provide feedback in a much more rich way, especially when you compare that or pair that with some observation, right? So the nice thing about this is it actually kind of paints athletes into a corner and they can't wiggle out of it, right? And then you can challenge them. Hey, was that very specific, or was you didn't give me very much detail there, right? So we can really hold them accountable in terms of getting their feedback, which requires you to be listening, and then for us to be able to provide that feedback back, right? So I would like to know in the chat, your out of a score of 10, how could you take this on? Your level of comfort in trying something like this, using something like a TED Pie kind of idea. Out of 10, do you think you could give this a go? Nice, Mario. Yeah, great. So I'd like to hear, because microphones are on, and that's fine. We left them on intentionally. Thank you, Sue. What would be, maybe for Sue, what would be a little bit of an apprehension here, or for the 10s? I'd like to know a little bit, dig a little bit more into why you've come up with those scores.
In my case, it was lack of understanding, lack of knowledge about the technique.
Okay.
I gave the score that I did because unless the athlete can explain to me what it is that they're doing, and are able to understand what I'm asking them to do,
Yep.
I'm not sure that they can explain to me precisely in detail.
Yeah. So Sue, you're spot on, right? So all things being equal, this is a fantastic model. The reality is that we work with some athletes who cognitively will maybe not understand precisely. So
Right.
So the message then here is, even because the word precisely, even in a sense, is an evaluative term. It's relative, right? So an athlete could be describing something for them. They have to work really hard, and they're saying it's precise, even though we might say that's very vague, right? But for their cognitive ability, maybe that is as precise as they can go. So,
Right.
so what this framework kind of does is pushes people to use their thinking, right? And so remember, the precursor to learning is thinking. It's very difficult to learn something new or improve it if you don't think about it. So that's essentially what we're pushing their thinking. And so again, if you work with a Downs athlete, they're going to give you whatever precision they can, right? So it's not about getting to like a magic bar of precision. It's about getting them to be as precise as they can, if that makes sense, Sue.
I totally understand it, and I will use the example of an athlete with Downs.
Yeah.
I think as coaches, we really need to work with athletes and give them the vocabulary or the words to help them do this.
Yes.
Because a
And
lot
it's-
of our, sorry,
No,
A
that
lot-
was me jumping. Sorry.
a lot of our athletes learn by observation, and they're not necessarily good with verbal. So it may be hard for them to make that connection.
Love it. Yeah, spot on. Yeah, and in some cases, like we just did with the chat, we may ask them for a number, right? How many fingers for something, or whatever that
Yes.
might be. So you're bang on. Ron, did you want to share a little bit of your 5?
I changed from 9 to 5.
That's quite a change.
Yeah. And excuse me. When I heard Sue respond there, and immediately I thought to myself, some of my athletes, do not have the vocabulary or even the terminology to be able to
Yeah.
precisely, in detail, or exactly. So if I'm going to use this, I'm going to work on 1 or 2 words, and I'm a ski instructor as well, and I would use 1 or 2 terminologies over and over and over again.
Good. And I always appreciate when people reflect and listen to others, have an open mind, and change in this case, your number, and so drastically, I think is actually quite cool. So let's be clear that there's always a risk when we show a framework like this. TED Pi is here because it's easy to remember. But remember, you could have a lot of different verbs on the left, right? You could have show me quickly, right? So this could not even include any language. This could be, demonstrate something or organize. I'm just saying, like, you could have a bunch of things on a table. You could say organize, in by color. Like you can. These are super interchangeable, and so like everything, anytime you're doing PD or coach training, it's all about context, right? So my saying at work when I work with organizations is content goes inside of context, and the context always supersedes the content. So we can look at this and say, not bad. I could probably use this. And then as a few of you said, you're like, man, I don't know in my context if I can. So then it's just about crimping and adjusting, or going down a totally different road. But maybe the leave behind is, you know what, maybe when someone says good, that's not good enough anymore. How can I get them to be just a little bit more specific? Okay. So what we're going to do is go like this. There you go. Nice big white page for you. So when we have sort of the TED Pi conversation, observation, however it makes sense in your reality, that is going to give us, hopefully, that good information, that good perspective and perception that your athlete will have, right? Because they're going to have a different perspective than you. They're doing it, you're not. They're going to have a different perception, either because of cognitive function or because two witnesses see things differently because of perception. So they're going to come at things differently. But once we've sort of bottled that up, we can then say, all right, I'm going to give some feedback here. And my feedback can be very descriptive. And descriptive is just me telling them what they're doing, right? You're standing tall, right? Your knees are bent, whatever that might be, but somewhat of a descriptive type feedback. Okay. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just that. We can also have some evaluation attached, right? Your knees are bent too much. Your knees, that's A plus, right? Whatever kind of evaluation, even things like good job or not like that, those are okay. They're vague. They're not specific, but they're still an evaluation of what's happening. Okay. Anyone want to take a guess at the third one? There's only 3. So we can describe what's happening. We can put a value on it essentially. And or what else? Probably the one that most of you use most often. Right. And that's, yeah, say again, Sudha.
Well, when I'm giving feedback, I describe what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, I do a lot of debriefing on the chair on the way down, talking about their run, because it's through a race course. What they thought they did well. Is there something that they could work on? And then we go back up and we practice that.
Perfect. So when they're practicing that at the time, right? Like you said, you might describe what you're seeing. You might say, hey, I think we're off a little bit, or hey, you nailed it that time. You nailed it is evaluative feedback, right? And then this final one of prescriptive, meaning you're going to tell them, hey, again, whatever your sport is, your knees were too bent, evaluation. Next time, what I'd like you to do is have, just a slight flex in your knees, prescriptive.
Exactly.
Right? So the idea here is to find a balance of these 3 things, because if you, and most of us have a bias to one or the other typically. So if you do, then it's nice to kind of try and figure out what those bias are. And what I would absolutely, well, for me, it's a must in coach development, and it's a little bit scary at the beginning. But what I'm going to tell you is, if you have access to a GoPro, put it on your chest, put it on your head, whatever, and record your interactions with your athletes. If someone has a phone, they can just record you that way. But one of the things I want you to be able to do is focus your attention not on you. Because that's what happens now, right? We ask coaches, I want you to video your interactions, your communication, and then they put the camera on them. What I would like is the camera on the athletes, so we can see their responses. And because many times you won't notice some nuance, you won't notice some very obvious things, because you're busy thinking about your instructions and your advice and all those kinds of things. So for example, when I work with varsity volleyball teams, it's weird because I'm 5'6" and everyone else is very, very tall. But when the coach, so I'm on the bench with the team supporting the coach, when they call a timeout, I stand behind the coach so I can see the players and how they're reacting to the coach, because that tells me more about the effectiveness of the interaction than staring at the coach. Okay. So like I said, I would really encourage you to find a way. So when you think about, PD is expensive, to go to conferences and it is. So we can do things absolutely free that is highly customized. And if you're interested, I'll show you my email at the end. If you're interested, just shoot me an email and I can send you like some templates where you could video yourself and then look at sort of, the good, the bad, and kind of just do a brief review. And you only need to video like 10 minutes or something, and you'll see a lot. And you can really start to then harness and refine some of your feedback skills. Okay. So just as a review here, we essentially went through this to try and get good content from our athletes. This also is in pairing with some observation. And then we are going to deliver some feedback to them. Okay. And so it's always kind of cheesy. You got to throw some kind of, I'm not sure how motivational it is, but some kind of quote in there that, these kinds of things take a little bit of courage, and they do make you feel maybe a little bit yucky at the time, and you stumble through your words. But like juggling, the only way to know how to juggle is to juggle and to drop the balls and, try again, if you will. So I would encourage you to do the same kind of thing. So that takes us to that's perfect timing, 33 minutes to the end. And I would, I'd like to ask you, what questions do you have? What comments would you like to make? What discussion would you like to have?
Okay, Glenn, I'll ask you a question. I like your idea of videoing the athlete's response to what you're talking to them about, but wouldn't the flip side be true as well? Let's video the coach and see how his delivering techniques are.
Yeah, you're spot on. I mean, in a perfect world, I mean, let's get both angles, right? Let's see what the coach looks like in terms of, arms are flailing and it's distracting, or, maybe some of the body language, all those things. I mean, the nice, you can always capture the words and the tone by having the camera in the opposite direction towards the athletes. But for sure, I would encourage you to do both. Definitely. I mean, it's like I say, I mean, even simple things like listening to your own voice when it's recorded, if you haven't done it a lot, feels a little uncomfortable. But, we ask our athletes to stretch outside their comfort zone every single day. Every day we ask them to try new skills. We ask them to think about a new strategy. We ask them to control their emotions a little more effectively. And I would say, if I can be bold, that I don't think coaches talk to themselves the same way they talk to their athletes in terms of encouraging them to be risky. So that's my challenge to you, is to consider being risky in your own development. Let me ask you, what tools or what things do you think you would need, or information or support to be able to slightly improve your feedback? Right. So so just to be clear, as I ask a question and keep talking, that's not very good facilitation. We're not saying this is how you have to communicate. We're saying, how can you get more specificity, and then think about trying to find a balance in the type of feedback you're given. That's the takeaway from today. So what tools, resources, information would you need to try and nudge that ahead for yourself?
I think for me, it would be remembering to start with use I messages.
Right.
As opposed to, which I try to do, but a you message can infer they're doing something wrong, you're doing this, you're doing that. So I think it's always important to start with I like the way you do this, or I saw you do this, whatever.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Show some accountability and autonomy. And I love it.
For me, it's a video piece. Videotaping what they're doing. It's much more speed skating. So when we go to the feedback, I have those visual pieces to work with.
Right.
The athlete.
Okay. So do you have that ability right now?
I use my phone, but I'm looking at a GoPro or something of that nature to make it better.
Okay.
Yeah, I like the idea of a GoPro.
Yeah, and thank you. And you can easily, I mean, GoPros are not inexpensive, but you can easily go. I've seen all kinds of people MacGyver their phone to have it like on their chest with a bungee cord, or like, I mean, you can come up with all kinds of ways to make that work as well, or simply have someone else do it. But yeah, for sure. Just be careful. I'm sorry, I don't know who the speed skating coach by name. I'm sorry, but just be aware. I'm not a camera expert. Just be aware that if you're going to use stuff for technical analysis, GoPros because of the parabolic lens, things always look like they're a little bit round when you see the picture. So just be careful that if you're going to use it for technical analysis, GoPros might not always be the best. So a little bit of research online for cameras that, your phone actually is better than a GoPro for technical analysis. So, but yeah.
My question, Glenn, then is there's a program for tablets called a Coach's Eye.
Yep.
What's that like?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a little bit of a different subject, but it probably all comes back to feedback at the end of the day. Coach's Eye is definitely one of the leading technical analysis sort of tools. So I have Coach's Eye on my phone and my iPad. And so it's super simple. If anyone hasn't used something like Coach's Eye, you're basically going to just shoot video right from inside the app. And inside the app, then you'll be able to, draw lines on your athlete and put all kinds of different filters on it. Like from a technical, you can go into slow motion, frame by frame, and really annotate it as much as you want.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then what you can do is, if you want, you can just take, so for example, let's say it was speed skating. You had a 30-second clip, and even if you didn't show the athlete at the time, you could then take it and annotate it with your finger and draw the lines. And then there's all kinds of like preset tools in there. And then what you can do is voice it over at the same time. So you could be like, hey, Johnny, great lap today. I noticed that on your stride. And while you're talking, you can annotate it and then just email that to the athlete. So then they can see themselves. They can see the lines you drew. So you don't have to do it at that moment. You can do that at the office or at home or something. So yeah, Coach's Eye is probably I don't know if it's the biggest, but definitely, if it's not the biggest, it's definitely one of the most used technical analysis apps. So yeah, and I think it's a free download on regardless what kind of phone you have.
That's
The
wonderful.
logo, yeah, the logo is like a little baseball hat with a camera on top of it. You'll see. Yeah. So those, I mean, again, another tool to, we could get into technology and all how that marries up, but that's another tool that add a more rich feedback opportunity for you. Yeah. Great point. So these are the conversations that I love to have. And, there's my email, my phone, happy to connect with you without making it sound like a marketing pitch. If you friend me on Facebook, we can add you to the Coach Plus coaching group. It's a very, very innovative group. It's not just articles and talking about things. We actually do actual networking, and you have to kind of see how it works. But if you're interested, just friend me. We can get you in the group, and you can continue to network with coaches from parasport, Special Olympics, generic, community, high performance. Pretty much everyone's in there. So yeah, little plug, I guess. But at the end of the day, please, if you have questions about anything like Coach's Eye or ways to video yourself or templates to self-assess, like I would be disappointed if you thought about it and then didn't email me. So I love getting emails from coaches about that kind of stuff. So let's definitely make a point of doing that. So there is a stop share. And is there anything that we want to leave with as a takeaway? Okay. Tom, are we okay at your end?
You bet. Thank you so much, Glenn. I've lost video, so you can't see my big smile, thumbs up, and Ted Pie written down on my little Post-it note here.
Okay.
To do or use when I work as well. But I think rare that we get someone of Glenn's caliber on something like this for a free webinar for half an hour. And the fact he threw up his email address, take advantage of that. And I can vouch for that Facebook group as well. There's lots of good stuff going on there. So thank you to the coaches that did come out and volunteers. If you are a coach and you want to share your full name and NCCP number, I'll do my best to get you some PD credits in the locker as well. But can add that. And a reminder tomorrow that Natasha's session on being the best I can be, preparing myself as an SO volunteer, is 8 o'clock English and 7 o'clock French. It'll be going out on the SOC social media either tonight or tomorrow morning. but please share locally and get as many people out as possible. But again, on behalf of Special Links Canada, all our volunteers, thanks, Glenn.
Yep, for sure. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have
you.
have a great
Thank
evening,
you.
and we'll connect soon.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thanks,
you're
Glenn.
welcome.
Thanks,
for
Glenn.
now.
That was great. Thank you.
You're welcome.